The salty wind carrying the scent of seaweed whipped across my face like a reminder that the ocean always exists, no matter how fractured a human life can be. Below, an emerald blue cove opened like the giant eye of the Pacific. A thin white waterfall dropped onto a crescent-shaped beach. Wild daisies trembled along the slopes, and old palms cast shadows mingling with sunlight. The sound of waves was steady, patient, like the heartbeat of a mother I never had. I pulled over on the Pacific Coast Highway, hands still trembling. My left cheek still burned with the trace of my mother's slap. When I fled our apartment in Queens straight toward California, I carried a suitcase of clothes, my office laptop, and one lifelong habit of fear. Whenever the phone rang, my heart clenched. The phone rang. Again, my mother. "Evelyn, come back immediately. Your father is furious. Don't play childish games." Her voice was cold as steel. I hung up. The silence afterward made the waterfall's sound even clearer. I was 36, an accountant at a small nonprofit in Manhattan, and still called a child whenever I refused to sign another loan for them. I leaned my forehead against the steering wheel. Just hours earlier, my father had slammed a door and roared when I declined to use my credit card to put down a deposit for his garage repair. "You're a daughter. Your duty is to help family," he said, his grip bruising my arm. My mother stood nearby, glaring. "Ungrateful at your age already." I still remembered her gold wedding band flashing in the kitchen light, right before it carved its mark across my cheek. I couldn't recall exactly how I found myself on this road, whether by taxi, flight to San Jose, or rental car down the coast. I only knew I needed a place where no one could reach me, at least for one night. Big Sur embraced me with a wild beauty that asked for nothing. Here, I felt if I let something sink into the sea, it would never rise again. I opened my notebook and scrawled in large, shaky letters, "I am no longer a walking credit card." The wind dried the ink instantly. I closed the notebook, looked at the waterfall stitching sky and sand together with a silver thread, and thought, if there was any good thread connecting my life to kindness, it was lying here, on this bay, with nothing but waves and the scent of wild daisies. That night I slept at a small nearby inn, window cracked open to the ocean's voice. The next morning I returned to New York. I didn't know what awaited me there, but I knew one thing: I would not return the same. My childhood was the smell of cigarettes and fried meat my mother loved. It was coming home from school, backpack still on, to hear my father's demand, "Hand over the money." At 18, I worked at a grocery store, and my first paycheck was taken by my parents to pay bills. At 22, I co-signed a loan to fix the house, a house never repaired. At 25, I had a gentle photographer boyfriend, Mark. We once sat beneath Bryant Park trees and he whispered about marriage. My mother cried and begged, "Don't abandon family for a man." A month later, Mark got an anonymous call accusing him of being a gold digger. He withdrew in silence. I never asked. I already knew who called. From then, I buried myself in study, earned a CPA license, joined a nonprofit. I managed strangers' money better than my family's endless compromises. I mastered quick call answers when my mother phoned, forced smiles, endured demands wrapped in guilt. "You owe us for raising you." After Big Sur, I filed for a week's leave. My boss saw the bruises on my arm, asked nothing, only said, "Go. When you need help, say so." That night, I stood by my apartment window watching Manhattan light up. The Empire State Building rose against the amber sky like a sewing needle stitching silk fabric of time together. From 34th Street, it stood as a watchman. From a Fifth Avenue rooftop bar, it was the lighthouse of the city. The phone rang. Not my mother this time. A polite German-accented voice. "Hello, Miss Evelyn Carter? I'm Heinrich Keller, an attorney in Munich. I'm calling regarding Mrs. Lieselotte Becker, your mother's aunt." I held my breath. "She passed away 4 years ago. In her will, she mentioned you." I leaned on the window frame. My faint memory of Aunt Liesel, a silver-haired woman who sometimes mailed postcards with a white castle on a hill. I never met her. My mother hated those postcards, calling her a dreamer. That castle, if I remembered right, was Neuschwanstein. "The will states," the lawyer continued, "a trust fund for you. But with conditions. Could you come to Germany? I think you should hear this in person." So my leave had a new itinerary. I booked a flight to Munich. My mother called nonstop. I switched off the phone. Munich in mid-May was bright and fresh as a polished tabletop. Lawyer Keller welcomed me at his office near Englisher Garden, pouring chamomile tea. He handed me an old envelope, edges lined red and blue, back sealed with a red wax snowflake. "This," he said, "was sent to you 4 years ago. Returned marked recipient not at address. I suspect someone intercepted it." Inside was a shaky English letter. "Little Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means I've gone. I regret not being near while you grew up. I have no children, and I know you have no adult who truly protects you. I want to give you a small bridge to step out of the family's mud. But you only cross when you take the step. The trust will open if you prove you live independently, control your own finances, and bear no debts imposed by others. Show the lawyer your personal accounts, rental contract, and..." A pale blue line read, "and an honest testimony. Come to my castle, you'll see why I believe in stairs that climb high." Her castle? I looked up. She didn't own it. Keller smiled knowingly. She worked for years in the monument administration. She had a cottage in Hohenschwangau, facing Neuschwanstein. She always called it my castle. We drove south. Fields rolled like carpets, farmhouses square, cows meandering, mountains layering green. Then, behind crimson maples, rose the white castle, spires pointing heavenward, clouds sugared like powdered candy. My childhood postcard came alive. And for a moment, my weariness fell away. At Aunt Liesel's yellow-walled cottage with red geraniums on the balcony, I entered a living room where her black and white portrait stood by a piano. On the table, a wooden box. Keller handed me a key. Inside, photos, a silver ring etched with L, and a leather notebook. The first line was a question. "Will you choose to love yourself more than false duty?" We worked 2 days checking my papers. Bank accounts, lease, income, all in order. Then Keller frowned. "But here, a consumer loan in your name. Opened last year." The floor seemed to vanish. "I never opened that." "Indeed. Signature looks copied. We must notify authorities. If it's identity theft, the trust cannot open until cleared." I knew immediately who had done it. I called home. Father answered, TV blaring. "Dad, why is there a $30,000 loan under my name at Queens Federal?" Silence. Then my mother snatched the phone. "I don't know what nonsense you're spewing. You love blaming. I've reported it. Any use of my name now will face charges." Ungrateful brat. Slam of a receiver. Keller looked at me. "This is the trial your aunt foresaw. The trust requires freedom from toxic financial chains. We will pursue it fully." 3 weeks later, with evidence, testimony, and forensic signature analysis, the bank froze the loan pending investigation. Keller handed me the trust papers. "Evelyn, your aunt left you enough to begin anew. Not so much you'd grow idle, but enough to never be blackmailed by duty again. $200,000, released quarterly over 5 years, with financial counseling." I sat in silence as wind swept through the cottage. Across, Neuschwanstein gleamed like a dream with sharp edges. I thought of my parents cutting my life short, of Big Sur's waterfall, and heard Aunt Liesel whisper, "You only step when you take the step." Back in New York, I went straight to a bank on Lexington Avenue. With the trust's U.S. lawyer, I filed fraud complaints, reset all passwords, locked credit cards, flagged bureaus. I scheduled therapy. I told my boss everything. He said, "If you want a restraining order, the company has lawyers." For the first time, I felt not alone. That evening, I met Noah, my younger brother, at a cafe near the Empire State. He'd texted, "Sis, let's talk." He had once been the boy waiting by the window for me after school, but lately, he always sided with our parents. "Do you really think you're right?" he began, voice harsh. "Whoever opened that loan, it was for family. Dad's back hurts. Mom's worried. Then you vanished to Germany?" She cried all week. "Don't weaponize her tears," I said calmly. "I won't sign for anyone again. If you need help with school, ask openly. But all must be transparent." "Transparent?" he scoffed. "Since becoming an accountant, you talk like a lawyer. Why not change your surname too? You're no family anymore." I looked at him steadily. "Family doesn't forge family signatures." His hand shook. For a moment, I sensed he knew more than he admitted. "If you tell me the truth, you'll still be my brother." He rose. "You don't understand." He walked out. Outside, the Empire State's lights glowed cold white, the lightning rod above like a pen stabbing the sky. I braced for a storm. A week later, I received a notice from the bank. Someone had attempted to access a new account under my name using a notarized power of attorney. My lawyer forwarded me the copy. It read, I, Evelyn Carter, authorize Mrs. Linda Carter to manage all assets left by my aunt. The notary stamp came from a small shop on Corona Street. My hands trembled. This was a direct strike. Together with my lawyer, I visited the notary shop. The owner flipped through files, scratching his head. She came with a young man. The documents looked valid. The photo ID looked just like her. He handed me a copy. My face. Or someone so close, it was chilling. I studied it carefully. It was my employee photo, stored in a folder on my home computer. Who had access? My mother had entered my room many times, and Noah knew my old password. We reported it to the police. That same day, I received a text from an unknown number. Don't make things hard. Blood is blood. Family money stays in the family. Attached was a photo of me, taken from afar, walking into my office building. Cold prickled my neck. My lawyer whispered, Evelyn, we'll move meetings to a safer place. The 60th floor office at the Empire State Building. Good security, and the bank has a branch there. I nodded. If confrontation was inevitable, I wanted it at a height where I could see the whole city. To remind myself my life was larger than a queen's kitchen. On the day of the meeting, I arrived early. The sky was clear. Manhattan spread below like an endless chessboard. The Hudson shimmered like a ribbon of ice. Standing by the window, I felt like the city's still heartbeat. A figure appeared behind me. I turned. Noah. Sis, he said softly. I'm sorry. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside were printed emails between my mother and Mark. My chest tightened. Mark. The man who once promised me marriage. The emails revealed, 2 months ago, Mark wrote about wanting to reconnect and mentioned the money that once saved your father. My mother replied, if you help me persuade Evelyn to sign over the trust, I'll clear your old debt. Attached was a personal loan contract between Mark and my father, dated 8 years ago. The exact time Mark vanished. He had borrowed money to open a photo studio. When it failed, my father tightened the leash. My daughter will pay. Mark chose to disappear. Now, he had returned, seeking redemption by betraying me again. Noah whispered. I overheard Mom on the phone with Mark. She made me photocopy the power of attorney. I thought I was helping family. But when I saw her use your photo for the notary, I knew it was wrong. I'm sorry. I looked at him. Maybe he too was trapped in the same twisted loyalty. Thank you for telling me. The door opened. My mother and father walked in, Mark trailing behind. I sat upright. Security stood by the door. My lawyer invited them to sit. Mother started. We're here to keep things civilized. Evelyn, sign this authorization. I'll manage the trust. You don't understand. Too much money spoils people. My lawyer slid a paper across the table. Mrs. Linda Carter. You've committed forgery and harassment. This is notice we're filing for a restraining order. Father slammed the table. You talk to your parents like this? He rose, moving toward me. Security stepped in. I stood, locking eyes with him. This is the last time you call me an ungrateful child. I'm an adult. The owner of my life. I'm not an ATM. I'll love and help when I choose. Not under threats or beatings. Mother sneered. We'll see what police can do. I opened Noah's envelope and spread the email copies. And here's proof you conspired with my ex to steal assets. Mark, I turned to him. Any words? Mark's face went pale. I needed money. I'm sorry. Evelyn. He reached out as if to beg, then dropped his hand when I shook my head. My lawyer ended the meeting. As my parents protested, security escorted them out. I remained alone by the glass wall. The city didn't tilt for anyone's pain. I pressed my palm to the window. For the first time in my life, I looked down from above without fear of falling. The next 3 months became a string of small but resolute actions. I moved into a bright apartment in Brooklyn, tended a snake plant and red geraniums, like Aunt Liesel's balcony. I saw a therapist weekly, learning to name what had happened. Abuse, manipulation, blame shifting. I filed for a temporary restraining order. My mother sent Noah messages that she just wanted to talk. I replied through my lawyer. All contact must go through legal representatives. The trust began releasing its first quarterly funds. I spent cautiously. Therapy fees, minor debts of my own, an emergency fund. I enrolled in an advanced personal finance class at a community college, not because I lacked knowledge, but to remind myself knowledge was a fortress. I allowed myself joy too. On weekends, I flew back to California. Not to flee, but to honor where my promise began. At Big Sur, I stood again on the cliff. Sunlight poured gold over the sea, waterfalls shimmering like dusted gold. Daisies bloomed, ignorant of forged papers or sleepless nights. I smiled, wrote in my old notebook, I have begun. Back in New York, unpacking boxes, I found a wooden keepsake forgotten for years. Aunt Liesel's postcard from when I was 8, showing Neuschwanstein in autumn, forests aflame. On the back, her shaky line. When you see people build beauty on cliffs, you'll believe beauty requires courage. I placed the postcard beside a framed photo of the Empire State at sunset. A castle in clouds, a steel needle through sky, and a blue cove. 3 places that had named me, teaching courage, steadiness, and cleansing. One autumn evening, Noah asked me to dinner at a small Italian restaurant on Bleecker Street. It's important, he said. When I arrived, he was already seated, with my mother. I nearly walked out. Noah pleaded, Please, sis. Mom wants to apologize. My mother's eyes were red. I was wrong. But don't make this bigger. Neighbors are gossiping. I just need some money for bills. I straightened. My breathing was steady. Mom, what you call making it big is my first act of kindness to myself. I won't pour money into a bottomless hole anymore. If you need help, show me bills, repayment plan, and sign a promise not to use my name again. You must also enroll in a debt counseling program. I'll pay for that. She scoffed. You think you're so smart now. Noah intervened. Mom, she's right. I'm tired too. I turned to him. Are you moving out? He nodded. I've found a room near work. In his eyes, I saw the mix of fear and relief I knew well. Mother stood abruptly. I don't need children anymore. She stormed out. Noah and I sat in silence. The restaurant glowed warm, garlic scent thick. A painting of boats on Naples Bay hung on the wall. I felt lighter, as if setting down a suitcase overweight for years. That winter, I took another week off, for travel, not escape. I flew to Munich, drove to Hohenschwangau. Neuschwanstein in snow looked like a cake frosted in sugar. Pine forests dark around it. I climbed the slope to Marienbrücke, the bridge facing the castle. The wind bit my ears, but I welcomed it. It awakened me. In Aunt Liesel's house, I lit a candle. I set the silver L ring on the window ledge, whispering, I've arrived. Then I flung the window wide. Cold air rushed in, smelling of snow. Her portrait on the wall seemed to smile. I wrote a letter. To myself. Evelyn, when you read this, you'll know freedom isn't the absence of ties, but the choice to bond with what deserves it. Honesty, courage, dignity. Keep them. I mailed it to my Brooklyn address. When it arrived in January, opening it felt like a gift from the healthy relative I never had. The next quarter, the trust released funds again. I invested part into a small community bookstore for seniors on the Upper West Side, where I once volunteered. I named the new reading corner Liesel's Stairway. On the wall hung 3 images: Big Sur, The Empire at Dusk, Neuschwanstein. Elders came to read, sip chamomile tea, recall youth and old pains dulled by time. I listened, building a chosen family of warmth not tied by blood. Noah moved out, sometimes dropping by with bread or apple pie. He studied HVAC repair, paying his own tuition. My mother occasionally sent brief texts in her old demanding tone. I replied with clarity. When she asked for money, I gave her debt counseling contacts. When she sent angry emojis, I didn't answer. When she sent a photo of me as a laughing child, I replied, Thank you for sharing. I practiced peace that didn't require her to change. One spring afternoon, I climbed the Empire's observation deck alone. The sky was blue, roads stretched silver, the rivers Hudson and East like twin silk ribbons. I touched the railing, remembering Big Sur's waterfall, Bavaria's snow. All merged into a mosaic. Cliffs taught me release, Steel Spire taught me to stand tall, Cloud Castle taught me to believe in stairways rising. Beside me, a boy tugged his mother's sleeve. Mom, it's so high. I'm scared. She patted his head. Just look far out, and the fear lessens. I smiled. To look far, that's what I had learned. And when you look far enough, you see close. Yourself. Kind strangers. And a path built from steady steps.